Okay, so the idea is that you should do these two exercises, 128 and 129, and then you should watch me do it and discuss it, right? So if you haven't done this exercise, then you should probably pause the video, do the exercise, and then just to make sure everything's correct, you can watch it. You can watch the video, and perhaps if there are any doubts, then I'll be able to explain. So, okay, so we are supposed to ask about the highlighted parts of the sentences, so those parts in bold. So we have different parts of a sentence, like objects, adverbial subject. So in this case, we're asking about the object, right? Because he told me exactly what happened. So what did he tell me, right? So we're asking about the object. So what did he tell me? He told me exactly what happened. Okay, so it is built of reinforced concrete, right? So we have this object of a preposition. So we're going to ask, of course, we start with the question word, and the preposition will come at the end. So what is the bridge built of, right? We're all going to watch the cricket match, so of course the question is, what are you going to do? He broke it in a skiing accident. So of course here it's an adverbial, but it's not an adverbial of place because we are not specifying the place, so we can't ask where, right? We are saying how he broke his leg, right? So how did he break his leg? He lost his job because he kept coming in late for work. So because. So the question is, why did Tom lose his job? Question mark. I bought the big one. The big one. So which one? Which one did you buy? It looks rather like a factory. So the question is about the appearance of the theater, right? So what does the new theater look like? I'd like about a dozen, right? So dozen is a number, right? 12. So when asking about numbers, we would use how many, not how much, right? So how many would you like? It began at 8 p.m. So of course the question is about time. So when did the concert begin? Okay. She went to the dance, or she went with George, and we have to ask about where she went to the dance. So not where, who with, right? So who did she go to the dance with? She went with George. Okay. He bought one because the local railway station closed down. Okay, so of course again because, so the question is, why did he buy a car? He's coming at the end of the week. So, question about time. So, when is he coming? That one is longer. So, which one is longer? Right? We just replace that with which. Jack taught me. So here we have to ask about the subject, right? And questions about the subject of the sentence are quite simple because we just replace the subject with the question word, like who or what, and we don't change anything. So we don't use auxiliaries, we don't change the word order. So who taught me? Okay. She's broken another of your best plates. So this time we're asking about the object of the verb, right? So we have to use the auxiliary. And this is of course present perfect, so we have to ask, what has she broken? Okay. I'm looking for a telephone box. So again, it's an object of a preposition. So what are you looking for? A simple question. He's borrowed your typewriter, so we have to ask about your, right? So about the possessive. And of course we have this possessive question word, whose typewriter has he, present perfect, borrowed? She was asking for a rise. So, what was she asking for? He's ringing up the police. So, again, the object. Question about the object. Who is he ringing up? It means employer. So what, actually get rid of the formatting, so what does the word boss mean? Right. He escaped by climbing over the prison wall. So here, of course, we want to know how he escaped, right? So we would ask, how did he escape? We were talking about Margaret. Who were you talking about? They liked Anne's idea best. So again, we're asking about the possessive form of the noun. So, whose idea did they like best? Right? He complained to the manager. So we're asking about the object of to, of complain to. So who did he complain to? It was about the size of an orange. So here, of course, it's about size. So how big was it? They intend to demonstrate against the new regulations. So we have to ask about the intentions of the students. So what do the students intend to do? I come from Scotland. So a very basic question. Where do you come from? The best kind costs about £20. So how much? Asking about price. So how much does the best kind cost? He gave it away because he didn't like the color. So why did he give it away? She's very pretty. We're asking about appearance. Of course, we could ask what is his sister like, but if we want to focus on appearance, we would ask what does his sister look like? It is for opening oysters, so we're asking about the purpose. So what is this knife for? It's for opening oysters. In the mornings I have to get the breakfast, make the beds and take Mrs. White's children to school. So what do you have to do in the mornings? I like the black one best. So which one do you like best? He comes about once a month. So about once a month. So the question is, how often does he come to London? Your father told me about it. Or your father told me. So we've got another question about the subject. Your father is the subject of the sentence. So we ask by replacing your father with who. So who told you about it? Your father told me. He's quick-tempered and impulsive. So we're asking about somebody's character. So what is he like? What's he like? Right, so that's the exercise. So now we move on to the next one. Again, if you haven't done it, it's a good idea to just do it, and we can see if there are any differences between your version and my version. So okay, so we have these letters which contain different tenses, including a few future forms, which we will not worry about because usually it will be just will, the future simple, and some forms with some forms of be able or can, could. So some conditional forms with would, like would like. So we're mainly interested, or we're mainly focusing on present and past forms. So I just hear. So I have just heard. And I'm not going to type these answers here because that would take too much time. Let's quickly just discuss these answers, and you can compare to your answers. So I've just heard, or I have just heard, present perfect. That my mother isn't very well, and I would like to go and, should be and, see her. The trouble is I can't take my dog Tim with me. This is a question, right? We've got the question mark. So we can ask, do you think you will be able to, or you can or could possibly, that would sound better, right? Because it's a kind of request. So do you think you could possibly look after him for a week? You had him for a week last year, right? So it's for a week, so it's a period of time, but it's last year, so it's a completed period of time. So it's in the past. So you had him for a week last year, you remember, and you said he was no trouble. or you could say he had been no trouble. It's not strictly necessary, the context is obvious, but you could use the past perfect. So you said he was, or you said he had been no trouble and got on well with your dog. And here it doesn't matter if it's past simple or past perfect, because even if it was past perfect, the past participle would still be got, at least in British English. So you would just have the participle here, or the past form of get. If you can have him, or if you could have him, I can bring him along anytime that suits you, right? So present simple, anytime that suits you, with an S at the end. He has his own bed and bowl, and I'll bring, so the future form, I will bring enough tinned dog food to last him a week. But if it is not convenient, don't hesitate to say so. There are quite good kennels near here, and they will take him if I ask. Right? So we have this conditional form, future here, and present simple after if you remember. He was there once before and seemed to get on all right, right? So once before, once, one day, right? So in those circumstances, with once, with one day, we use the past simple because we are referring to one specific occasion. Okay, so here's, I think, the response. So, dear Sarah, I was very sorry to hear about your mother's illness, and I'm glad that you are going, I think, if I remember correctly. I would like to go and see her, so probably, yes, I'm glad that you are going to Scotland to see how she is. It will be nice for her, I think two is missing here. It will be nice for her to see you. Of course, I'll look after Tim. So I will look after Tim, future. We thoroughly enjoyed having him last year, so past simple because it's last year, and my dog missed him when he left and looked for him everywhere, right? So that's what happened when last year, right, when the dog left. I'm sure he'll be delighted to see him again. Can you bring him on Tuesday afternoon? Or if that doesn't suit, any time, I think, on Wednesday. Don't bother to bring dog food. I have plenty. I hope you will have time to have tea with me when you bring Tom. So remember, after, so in all those subordinate clauses, after when, if, we use the present simple. And then, and that by then, okay, so actually here we would use the future perfect, which we haven't talked about yet, right? So you will have had better news of your mother. So it's just a preview of future forms. Okay, so the next letter. Dear Peter, do you by any chance know where Bob is? Right, so of course it's present simple. I'd like to find out because I have just heard, or I've just heard, of a job that exactly suits him. But if he doesn't apply fairly soon, of course he won't get it. Again, a conditional sentence, present simple future. I last saw him about a month ago, so past simple, a month ago. When he, so I wonder what you've got here. Most likely you should have when he had just left his job with the film company, right? Because that's what had just happened before that time I saw him, right? So a recent event, but in the past, right? Of course, theoretically, you could also say when he was just leaving his job. But I think it's more likely that he had already left the job and he said he was going to France. He had decided to go to France. So basically he said, I'm going to France. But since this is in the past, we've got reported speech, so he said he was going to France for a holiday and promised to send me a postcard with his French address as soon as he found, or possibly had found, a place to stay. It's like saying in the present, I'll send you a postcard as soon as I find a place to stay, or as soon as I have found, right? To emphasize that this has to happen first, and as soon as it has happened, I'll send you a postcard. So the same in the past, right? He promised to send me a postcard with his French address as soon as he found a place to stay, or as he had found a place to stay. That's also possible. But I have heard nothing since then, right? Since then, and I don't know even whether he went to France or not, right? Right. Most likely we'll use past simple because it's about that time that he was going to France. Of course, you could generalize and say, I don't even know whether he's gone to France, right? Whether it has actually happened. So maybe the time doesn't matter, whether in general, until this moment, he's gone to France or not. So it depends on how you look at it, or in the context. Okay, if you know his address, I'll be very grateful if you phone me. Right, so again we have a conditional. There are some problems with the scanned text. If you I have tried to phone you several times, but your phone doesn't seem to be working, right? So I've tried, because there's no indication of time. I'm just talking about what I've tried to do until now. And of course several times, so we can only use present perfect simple. Without it we could say, I've been trying to phone you, right? But your phone doesn't seem to be working. But it's several times, so it's number of times is specified. Okay. Dear sir, I'm interested in the furnished cottage near Dedham, which you advertised in yesterday's Telegraph. Right, so advertised in the past because it was yesterday's Telegraph. For my husband and I are coming to England in June and require accommodation for 3 weeks. Right, so this is a fixed plan or an arrangement. We are coming to England in June and require, of course, require is cannot be used in continuous forms, right? It's a state verb. So we require accommodation for 3 months. So basically we want, or we need accommodation. Could you please tell me exactly, or would you please tell me, is also possible, exactly where it is, and give me details of bus and train services in the area. I would also like to know about the local shops. Will I be able to shop without a car? We could ask this question this way. Yes, we have to, because we've got two here, so we cannot use can or anything like that. So, will I be able to shop without a car? My husband hopes to hire a car, or is hoping to hire a car. That's also possible. But I don't drive. So basically I don't have a driving license, or I just don't drive, and he won't be free very often to take me shopping, so we will need a cottage on a bus route, right? So we will need, or just we need, a cottage on a bus route. The local do the local shops still deliver? Right, question. I know they did 10 years ago. I would be grateful also if you could tell me whether you supply sheets, etc., and whether a laundry calls at the house. The rent you're asking sounds reasonable for the size of the cottage. How would you like it paid? Weekly, monthly, or in advance? My husband and I have been abroad for 10 years, right? Because they are still abroad and they're planning on coming to England, right, in June. So they have been abroad for 10 years. But before that, we lived near Dedham, right? So before that, so that's the past, we lived near Dedham, which is why we want to spend our holidays there. My husband is also writing a book about Constable. Theoretically, you could use present perfect continuous. There's no real reason, but you might say my husband has also been writing a book about Constable and would like to finish it in the area where he, but there's no context that we require, because she doesn't say for how long he's been doing that. So my husband is also writing a book about Constable, right? So he's currently working on the book and would like to finish it in the area where he, Constable, actually that's the pronunciation, Constable, painted most of his pictures, right? Of course, he's no longer alive, so he painted most of his pictures there. Mr. Jones, the bank manager, has known us since we lived in the area, and I'm sure, so actually here we have to decide if since refers to time or if it expresses reason, right? Because I don't think it refers to time, because if they are abroad, we can't say that he has known them since they lived in the area, right? Because that would imply that that he knew them when they lived and has known them since then, but that wouldn't make much sense logically, right? So since here probably means because, right? So he knows us since we lived, and you could actually use present perfect here, just to say that in general we have been here, we have lived here in the area, right? So you could say he knows us since we have lived in the area. And remember this since here, because if you look at the tenses, that wouldn't make sense to talk about since as referring to time. So since here means as or because, right? He knows us. He knows us as we have lived in the area, or because we have lived in the area. And I'm sure he will recommend us as suitable tenants. I, of course, will be willing to send or am willing to send a deposit. Of course, the word order probably has to be changed, so we would have to say I am, of course, willing to send a deposit. Right. I would be grateful for an early reply and enclose a stamped, addressed envelope. Okay, so that's the exercise, and now let's talk about this additional task that you should do online, so that I get some feedback that you've actually done these exercises and you've seen the video. So if you go to the course on Camilo, you will go to tests, right? So in the tests tool, need to re-log in. You will see this exercise, present and past tenses practice. It's just one exercise that you should do online. Complete some gaps using the correct tenses. It will be available starting 8 a.m. on Monday, right? So I'm recording this on Sunday. It's still not open, it's still not available, but you will see, you'll be able to start the test. So you will not be graded on this. I mean, you will see some kind of score or result for your own you know, knowledge, but it's not being, you're not being graded on this. This is just for practice. Okay, so there will be, I think, 10 sentences with some gaps. So just complete this exercise and submit it so that I know that you've done